Questions 34 to 44, practice 4 means the fourth passage in this set. This passage is entitled Fire in Space, and it has 10 questions. Number 34, I can see, deals with transitions. They're all transition words that move from one to the next. So you always want to figure out the direction. So for moreover, it's going the same direction. I love tacos. Moreover, I have them every week. However, changes directions. I love tacos. However, we never have them. Accordingly goes the same direction, as does subsequently. So both these go the same direction. I can probably assume that B is going to be the correct answer without even reading. I don't want to do that. We want to read, but because moreover, accordingly, and subsequently all go the same direction, we can assume that B is probably going to be the correct answer. So the shape that fire assumes on Earth is a result of gravitational influence, the movement of molecules, in the microgravity environment of space. However, combustion and the resulting fire behave in fundamentally different ways. So fire behaves one way on Earth and a different way in space, and so opposite things, so your answer has to be B. Number 35, we are looking for the way in which the sentence is constructed. So it's a rhetorical question. A group of engineering students from the University of California at San Diego, for example, tried to find a method to make their biofuel combustion study fuels derived from one living material. This one's actually a pretty easy one because this is serving to describe what came before it. So we're going to be describing fuels. So study is not fuel. Combustion is not fuel. Combustion is not fuel. Biofuels are fuel. So D is the correct answer. You could probably get this by reading and seeing which one sounds best, but that's not necessarily the way to do it. Modifiers go by the things they modify or explain. This isn't really modify, but it is an explanation. So D is the correct answer. Which choice provides the most precise description of the phenomenon depicted in the previous sentence? So we're looking here. The standard method involves burning droplets of fuel, but Earth's gravitational influence causes the droplets to lose spherical symmetry while burning. Okay, so gravitation causes the droplets to lose spherical symmetry. It's kind of hard to say fast. So we have circles, a sphere, and gravity pulls them down, and we don't have spherical symmetry anymore. So what is this? So it's not transformation, because that would be something different entirely. So C's out. It's not a modification, because you're not doing something to it. A modification implies that you have caused it to happen. And I would say the same thing goes with alteration. Alteration and modification both imply that it is an intentional change. So it has to be just a deformation, a change in what happened, but not something that you caused the change. That's a tricky one to think about. So the answer is A. So this is a verb agreement question because we have cause and limit. Cause limits, I can say C is pretty much going to be wrong for sure because you want the verbs to agree. Has caused and has limited. Has caused, has limited, or causes and limits. So we're going to say, okay, what causes and limits? Well, the subject here is both. Both cause and both limit. So cause, limit. So your answer has to be B. Remember, this is the 1S rule. It's not really an official rule, but girls run and girl runs. So whereas the S, if it's in the subject, the verb doesn't have an S. If the verb is in the if the S is in the verb, then the subject doesn't have an S. So B, both cause and limit. Remember, this isn't 100% sure though, because sometimes you're going to have words that are not forming their plural by adding S's. Remember, anytime delete is a choice, always check that first, because they're always testing conciseness. Conciseness means taking words out. So in this sentence, specifically designed drop towers built for this purpose. Well, we already know, because they're specifically designed, they're built for that purpose. So that's redundant. Reduce these problems. Specifically designed drop towers reduce the problems, makes sense. So our answer has to be D. It's the most concise answer. So D is the correct answer. Which choice provides most effective transition between ideas in the paragraph? So we have the sentence before talks about specifically designed drop towers reduce problems, but they provide no more than 10 seconds of microgravity, and the drop size is too small to produce accurate models of combustion. So we have two ideas, time and size are difficult. In the sentence after it being the underlined portion, says, as part of this program, researchers fly their experiments aboard aircrafts that simulate the microgravity environment of space. Well, we got to say, well, what is the program? So which one gives us a specific program? Not choice 30, not choice A. Choice B, yes, they're participating in NASA's microgravity program. And so that's the only one that's specific. C and D are not specific. So the only one that tells what program they're doing is choice B. So number 40 is a comma question. So we have to work through how all of the commas are used in this puzzle. So the first part of the sentence, on the plane's ascent, comma, passengers feel twice Earth's gravitational pull. I can say this comma but means that everything came before it is a complete idea, so I don't have to worry about this comma or anything before it. So now I can just worry about the second part of the sentence. For brief periods at the peak of the trajectory. So this is an introductory idea, which I know I could move, our move rule, move it from one part to the other, can move it to the end. So now I know how this comma is used. You could also remove it if I wanted to, I suppose. Now we have weightlessness or microgravity, similar to what is experienced in space, is achieved. So we have this comma after space. So I know that is achieved is the verb, so I know choice A is wrong because that comma just seems out of place. It could be separating something, and if it was, you can have another comma here, because or microgravity similar to what is experienced in space renames weightlessness. So which one has a comma after weightlessness and space? Not here, definitely not here. So, choice D. Weightlessness, space. So all this is extra information, and that's why those commas are there. If you know your 5 testing comma rules, you can get this one right. So this question is an add-delete question, where we are adding or deleting a sentence. The writer is considering adding the following sentence and perform their experiment without traveling into space. Should the writer make the addition? Specifically, they invested. Kept reading here. So read here. The flights allowed the USCD students to experience microgravity and perform their experiments without traveling into space. I'd say 100% yes, because that's been what it's about. They're not going into space. They're trying to conduct experiments that mimic space. And so it's either yes, because it elaborates on the advantage they gained from flights, or it reveals the students do not actually go into space. I think we already know that, so the answer has to be A, that it elaborates on the advantages the students gained from flights. So this is a verb question. I can see the verbs changing. It looks like verb tense more than anything. These flights allowed. Okay, that's a key. These flights allowed, because that tells what they were allowed to do. The UCSD students to experience microgravity. Specifically, they investigated combustion. So they're allowed and they were able to investigate. They didn't allow for twice as long necessarily in every instance. So that's why we know A is out. They were able to investigate for twice as long, but we don't know that they always did. They could investigate for twice as long. They were investigating. Both those aren't clear. They were able to investigate for twice as long by using the plane. So the answer has to be D. That one's kind of tricky too to really think about. Which choice most effectively established that the UCSD students had solved a problem mentioned earlier in the passage? So the problem mentioned earlier was that the effects of gravity changed droplets. So that's going to be what's mentioned here, spherical design. No change, don't read into it. You're just matching and saying what was experienced earlier. So number 44 is a comma question as well. I see a comma after techniques, comma after fires, no commas in choice C, and a comma after space. So let's go ahead and look at choice D. It's not renaming and it's not providing items in a series, so D is out. So as we work the puzzle, we have better combustion rate models may even lead to the production of more fuel-efficient engines and improved techniques. So there's items in a series, fuel-efficient engines and improved techniques. This for fighting fires in space is a prepositional phrase modifying the types of techniques. So we don't need a comma before that. So that means A is out. And we don't really need a comma before any prepositional phrase. We don't need any commas here. The answer is C. Reach out if you have any questions.